Hi, I'm Nate Savage, and welcome to the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. Now, I get people emailing me all the time, Nate, I would really like to play the guitar, but I don't know where to start. That is why I made this series. It's for people like you who've always wanted to play the guitar, but just haven't done it yet. There are inevitably a lot of guitar players out there who are gonna doubt that they have the ability to play the guitar. And let me just tell you right now, your hands aren't too big, they're not too small, you're not too young, you're not too old, and it doesn't matter if you're gonna be playing the electric or acoustic. Everyone has their own particular challenges, but I'm confident that if you put your mind to it and practice, you can play the guitar. Throughout the series, I've made sure to include the most important things you're gonna need to have success right away on the guitar. We're gonna cover things that aren't necessarily related to playing, like tuning your guitar, how to hold the guitar, parts of the guitar. And then we're gonna get into things like technique, how to strum, how to make your first chords, and even how to play your first song. I know the guitar has been a super enriching part of my life, and hopefully we can get it to where it's the same for you. That's why I made the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series, to give people like you the tools you're gonna need to get started. By the end of these 12 lessons, you're gonna be able to strum and know enough chords to play some of your favorite songs. And that's gonna be awesome and motivating for you. You're gonna have a solid foundation for your future, and you're gonna have a great idea of what you need to work on next. If you have any questions throughout the entire series, you can leave them in the commenting system below each video. I'll be in there to answer your questions as much as I can, or you can just email me, nate@guitarsystem.com. I'll see you in the first lesson. Hi, it's Nate Savage here again, and welcome to video number 2 of the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. In this video, we're gonna talk about how to hold the guitar. Knowing how to hold the guitar properly is gonna do a couple of things for you. It's gonna give you good posture, number one, which is gonna help you avoid any injuries or fatigue or anything like that. And it's gonna also ensure that your practice sessions go as well as possible. There are 3 basic ways to hold the guitar that we're gonna talk about. The first one is the casual method. The second one is the classical method, and the third one is standing up with a strap. So let's start with the casual method. If you're using the casual method holding the guitar and you're right-handed, what you're gonna do is just set your guitar on your right leg. And let me give you a few tips for using the casual method too, and a couple of things to avoid. The first thing I wanna talk to you about is this footstool that I'm using. They're about 15 to 20 bucks in a music store, and I would really recommend getting one of these if you're using either the casual or the classical method. Basically, I just put my foot on it to elevate my leg a little bit, and it brings the guitar up into a bit more of a comfortable position when I'm playing for long periods of time. One mistake that I see a lot of guitar players make when they use the casual method, newer guitar players anyways, is they'll slouch the guitar down like this. And the reason they're doing that is so they can see what's going on here with their fingers. And that's bad for a couple of reasons. It's not the best ergonomic position to be in. You're gonna get sore after a while, and it's not too good for your back. Also, it's pretty inefficient for your practice time. So what you're gonna wanna do is pull that guitar and make sure it's upright like this. The third tip I have for the casual method is to bring your arm around, your strumming arm, and hold that guitar in tight, pull it close to you. That's gonna keep the guitar from slouching, and it's gonna make sure that the guitar is in a good position for playing and practicing for longer periods of time. Let's move on to the classical method of holding the guitar. I'm gonna take my footstool down here, and I'm gonna move it from my right foot to my left foot. And if you're right-handed, you're gonna put your left foot on your footstool, and then you're gonna move your guitar over to rest on your left leg. This is gonna bring the guitar neck over to the left, and it's also gonna elevate it a little more, so you're in a better position to get to all the notes on the fretboard. Now, this method for me is a little bit harder to use for longer periods of time, unless you're using a strap to kind of help hold the guitar up, but it does put the neck in a better position to get all the notes. Okay, the last method I wanna talk to you about for holding the guitar is standing up with a strap. And you can get a strap at any music store. They start at $7. They're pretty cheap. They go all the way up to $200 for expensive leather straps and stuff. But generally, they're about 15 to 20 bucks. So it's worth the investment. Now watch, I'm gonna stand up, and you're gonna notice my guitar didn't really move up or down. There's a good reason for that. When you're practicing, it's best to practice in the same way that you're gonna be performing. So if you're gonna be performing standing up, it's probably best to be practicing standing up too. So that's it for this lesson. Experiment with each of the 3 ways to hold the guitar and pick the one that works best for you. In the next lesson, we're gonna talk about the numbering systems for the guitar. And by that, I mean the numbering system for your fingers, the numbering system for the strings on the guitar, and the numbering system for the frets of the guitar. If you have any questions at all, leave them in the commenting system below, or you can always email me, Nate guitarsystem.com. See ya. Hey, welcome to video 3 of the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. In this lesson, we're going to cover the numbering systems for the guitar, the numbering systems for your fingers, the numbering system for the frets of the guitar, and the numbering system for the strings of the guitar. This may seem really simple to you, but it's really important because if you know these numbering systems like the back of your hand, it's going to make all the future lessons that you go through on the guitar a lot faster. Let's start with the numbering system for the fingers for your fretting hand. This is really simple, but it's really important. Your first finger is going to be a 1, second finger is going to be a 2, third finger is going to be 3, and your fourth finger is going to be a 4. That may seem really simple to you, but when you start reading chord diagrams, scale diagrams, tabs, and sheet music, you're going to want to know which finger to use right away. Now we need to go over the numbering system used for the strings of the guitar. And this is a little bit counterintuitive. Most people think that your fattest string, the one closest to you, is the first string of the guitar, when that's exactly the opposite. The thinnest string, the one farthest away from you, down to the floor, is the first string. Second string, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And that's not really hard. You're just going to want to be aware of that and mill that around in your brain, that this is the first string, the thinnest string is the first string, and the thickest string is the sixth string. The last numbering system that we need to go over is for the frets of the guitar. And the frets are just these little metal strips that are laid in the fretboard right here. And it's really easy. It's just the first fret, second fret, third, fourth, fifth, and all the way up the guitar. When somebody tells you to put your finger on a fret, what you're going to do, if they say the first fret, first string with your first finger, you're going to go to that first fret and put your finger right behind that fret. If they told you to go to the 5th fret on the first string with your first finger, you would count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the 5th fret of the first string with your first finger. And this is something that you're going to need to test yourself on and be able to kind of go real quickly. If somebody says put your second finger on the 3rd fret of the 6th string, you need to be able to do that. Second finger, 3rd fret of the 6th string. And so take some time, test yourself, quiz yourself, look at some tabs, look at some chord diagrams, and get comfortable with the numbering systems for your fingers, the strings of the guitar, and the frets. Just being aware of the numbering systems that we talked about are going to make all the future lessons in the Beginner Quick Start series and all the other guitar lessons you take a lot faster in the future. In the next lesson, we're going to be going over the parts of the guitar, so get ready for that. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below or email me, Nate@guitarsystem.com. See ya. Welcome to video 4 of the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. I'm Nate Savage. In this lesson, we're going to cover the parts of the acoustic and electric guitar. Knowing the parts of the acoustic and electric guitar is really important because you need to be able to effectively communicate about your instrument to other guitar players. I have my acoustic here, so let's start with that. We're just going to go through the parts on the acoustic guitar, and some of them overlap, most of them actually overlap with the electric, which we'll get to later. Let's start down here on this end of the guitar. This whole part of the guitar is called the headstock of the guitar, and I'll kind of break those parts down for you. These right here are called tuning keys, and those are obviously the parts you turn to tune the strings of the guitar. These little parts right here, which kind of connected to the tuning keys, are called the tuning pegs or the string pegs, and that's where you attach your strings to the guitar. As you work your way down here, this white part on the guitar is called the nut, and that's where the strings rest before they go to the tuning peg. The next little area of the guitar we're going to work with is this part right here, and this whole entire area is called the neck of the guitar, and there are a few specific parts that I want to go over here with you too. These metal strips running vertically right here are the frets of the guitar, and the frets are attached to the fretboard or this piece of wood that runs along the neck right here. And that's usually glued onto the neck, but sometimes it's actually part of the neck. Most guitars have inlays or fret markers, and there's 2 reasons for these. One of them is aesthetics, just for decorations, and the other reason is to help you keep track of where you are on the guitar. You may have just dots on your guitar. These are a little more fancy. Regardless, they serve the same function. Moving up this way a little more, this whole part of the guitar is called the body of the guitar. And this is where we get a little bit of variance from acoustic to electric. So let me go through all of those parts with you. On the acoustic, you're usually gonna have a pick guard right here, and that's just so you don't scratch your guitar up when you're using your pick, right? Most acoustic guitars have a sound hole that's right here in the middle. Some of them have it in other spots or not at all. It just depends on your particular guitar. This part of the guitar right here, this black part, is called the bridge of the guitar, and that's usually glued to the top of your acoustic. This white part on the bridge of my guitar is called the saddle, and it's where the strings rest before they go into these holes back here. Now, the strings go into the holes, and then you put these little pins called bridge pins into the bridge to hold the strings in place. Some bridges don't have pins at all. You just stick them through the end back here, and they're called pinless bridges. It really just depends on the type of guitar you have. All right, as you can see, I have a strap on my guitar, and I have strap buttons too. There's one on the front, and there's one on the back too. Now, your acoustic guitar may or may not have strap buttons. It really depends on your particular situation. Some of them have one on the back, and some of them don't have one up here. If that's the case for your guitar, if you have a strap, make sure that it comes with like a little shoelace that where you can tie around the neck of your guitar right here so you can use a strap with your guitar. The electric guitar has many of the same parts that an acoustic guitar does, and there are some major differences though, and most of those differences come with the electronics. Let me switch to my electric real quick, and I'll show you what the differences are. So I've got my electric here, and like I said, a lot of the parts are the same. Headstock, tuning keys, frets, fretboard, neck, body. But when we get to the electronics, there's quite a bit of differences that you need to know about. There are two main areas of electronics that you should be familiar with, and that's the pickups and the controls. The pickups are basically the microphones of your guitar. They're going to pick up the vibrations from the strings, and then it goes out to your amplifier from there, right? Pickups come in two basic varieties, humbuckers and single coils. Now these pickups on this guitar are humbuckers, and they're usually a bit wider. You can't see it because these pickups have covers over them, but there's two rows of screws right here that pick up the sound from the strings. And humbuckers are called humbuckers because they get rid of the hum that's normally associated with single coil pickups. Single coil pickups are generally a little bit brighter, and they have a hum that's associated with them that the humbuckers can kind of get rid of. Neither humbuckers or single coils are better or worse or anything. It's all about personal preference and the kind of sound that you want for your guitar. Now let's talk about the knobs, the control knobs on the guitar. They come in two basic varieties. That's volume knobs and tone knobs. This particular guitar has 4 knobs. Yours may have 1, 2, or 3. It doesn't matter. It just depends on your particular guitar. Volume knobs basically control the output or how much volume is coming from your pickups. This is the volume knob for this pickup. So if I back off on it, that pickup's going to get a little bit quieter. If I max it out, it's going to get as loud as it possibly can. This is the tone knob for this pickup. If I back off on that, it's going to take some of the treble out of that pickup. And if I max it out, that pickup is going to be as trebly sounding as it possibly can. Now let's move on to the second type of control for your electric guitar, and that is the pickup selector switch. On this guitar, this is the pickup selector switch, and this is a 3-way toggle style of selector switch. And all it does is select which pickup is active. When it's all the way down, the bridge pickup is active, and the bridge pickup is going to be more trebly just because it's closer to the termination of the strings back here. If it's in the middle, both pickups are selected, and that's kind of a medium tone. And if it's up here on the neck pickup, that's the only one that's activated. And the neck pickup generally is going to give you a bit more mellow of a tone. And pickup selector switches come in a couple of different varieties, but the two main ones are toggle switches like this one, or if you have a Strat of some kind, you're going to see like a blade switch, maybe a 3-way or a 5-way switch. So that does it for the basic parts of the acoustic and the electric guitar. In the next lesson, we're going to learn the names of the open strings of the guitar, and that's important for 2 reasons. First of all, you have to know the names of the open strings to start learning how to tune the guitar. Second, you need to learn the names of the open strings to start learning the note names all the way up and down the guitar neck. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comments and I'll answer them there, or you can email me at nate@guitarsystem.com. See you. Welcome to video 5 of the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. I know you're probably itching to play, but there are a few more things that we need to go over that aren't directly related to playing the guitar before you actually get into like making chords, strumming, and all that kind of stuff. In this lesson, we're gonna learn something that I put off for a good while, and that's the names of the open strings on the guitar. I think the reason I put this off for so long is I didn't have a good way to remember it, so I kind of just avoided it. This is really important for you to know for many reasons, the most immediate of which is to learn how to tune the guitar. But it's also important for you to know in order to start learning the note names up and down the guitar fretboard. So quickly, let's just review the numbering system for the strings. The first string is your thinnest one, right? First, second, third, fourth, fifth, and your thickest one is the sixth string. Now, when it comes to learning the names of the open strings on the guitar, it's a little bit counterintuitive yet again, because we're gonna flip this. Most people start learning the names of the open strings starting with the sixth string and going to the first string. So the name of the thickest string, I hear the sixth string is an E, then you have an A, D, G, B, and E. That's E, A, D, G, B, E. You may be thinking to yourself, Nate, I can't remember that, there's too many strings. Well, that's kind of what I thought at the beginning too. I didn't have a really good way to remember it. So I finally just got sick of it and decided to come up with just a little silly saying to help me remember the names of the strings. And what I came up with was eat all day, go to bed early. Eat all day, go to bed early. And that may sound silly to you, and it kind of is, but use whatever saying works for you. It worked for me. And after several years of not having the string names memorized, I knew them after that. Another thing that might help you is if you realize the outside two strings are E's, you only have to memorize 4 more strings, the ones on the inside. Knowing the names of the open strings like the back of your hand is going to help you a lot in future lessons, especially the next lesson where we're going to learn how to tune the guitar. So get ready for that. If you have any questions, leave them here in the comments or email me, nate@guitarsystem.com. See ya. Hey, welcome to video 6 of the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. In this lesson, we're going to learn all about how to tune the guitar. Learning how to tune your guitar is really important because you can be a great player, but if your guitar is out of tune, you're not going to sound good. So by the end of this lesson, you'll know the things that you need to make your guitar sound great and in tune. This is going to be a pretty long lesson because I want to make sure that nothing was left out for you. We're going to break it up into 3 basic main parts. The first part is going to be tuning theory and tips. The second part is going to be tuning the guitar with an electronic tuner. And the third part is going to be tuning the guitar by ear. So if you already know how to tune a guitar with an electronic tuner, you can skip to the part on tuning by ear, or if you know how to tune a guitar altogether, you can just skip this lesson. Let's get into some things that you're going to need to know in order to tune the guitar. You've already learned the names of the open strings of the guitar. E, A, D, G, B, E. The next thing you're going to need to learn is the natural musical alphabet. And again, this is really simple, but you have to know it. The natural musical alphabet is just the first 7 letters of the regular alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Now we need to talk about the concept of a note being sharp or flat. If you see a natural note with a little sign that looks like a B next to it, a lowercase b, that little sign is a flat sign. And that, in the context of tuning, when we talk about a note being flat, that means that the note needs to come up a little bit. A sharp sign looks like a little tic-tac-toe sign. And in the context of tuning, when we talk about a note being sharp, that means that the note is a little bit too high and it needs to come down a little bit. When you look at an electronic tuner, it's going to have a couple of ways of telling you if a note is sharp or flat. And those 2 ways generally are either lights or needles. If the lights on your electronic tuner are off to the left, that means your note is a little flat and it needs to come up. If it's off to the right, that's telling you that your note is a little bit sharp and it needs to come down. Also, you could have a little needle that basically does the same thing. If the needle is off to the left, it's telling you that your note is a little bit flat and needs to come up. If it's off to the right, it's telling you that it's a little bit sharp and it needs to come down a little bit. Learning how to tune the guitar can be really tricky at first, and like anything else on the guitar, it takes practice to get good at. But if you do practice it, you will get good at it. So to get started, I want to give you some tips that are going to keep you from breaking strings. I know it's really frustrating when you're learning how to tune the guitar. So the first tip I'm going to give you is make sure that you're cranking on the right tuning key when you're tuning your guitar. You can follow this string down. If I want to tune my D string, I got to follow that all the way down to this tuning peg. Because if I accidentally start cranking on the A, and I'm thinking, why isn't the pitch of my D string not changing? I'm cranking on the wrong tuning key. What's gonna happen is I'm probably gonna break that A string, and that's just gonna be frustrating. So make sure, double check yourself, make sure you're tuning the right key for the string that you want to tune. The second tip that I wanna give you to keep you from breaking strings is this. If you think you're going too high, too far when you're tuning your string, you probably are. So just stop, crank it back down, and start over. One thing you're gonna wanna do before you get started is just go to any string, it can be this E string, and just play with the tuning key. See how much turning makes the note go down? And see how much you have to crank on it to make it go up too. Just getting familiar with that will keep you from breaking strings. So we live in a time where there are just a ton of options for tuners. There are clip-on tuners, pedal tuners, just handheld tuners like this. And it doesn't really matter which one you have. You can get a good tuner, just a handheld or a clip-on for 15 or 20 bucks. If that works for you, great. Today I'm gonna be using my iPad, actually an app on my iPad to tune the guitar. Those work really good too. So I've got my iPad pulled up here with just the tuner app. And one thing I wanna show you before we get into actually tuning the guitar is if you have a calibration setting on your tuner, you wanna make sure it's set to A440. Because if not, if it's a little bit off, you're gonna sound out of tune from everybody else that you're playing with, or if you're playing with a track or one of your favorite songs or something like that. So make sure that's set to A440. So let's actually get into learning how to tune the guitar with an electronic tuner. We're gonna break this down into a two-step process for you. The first step is to get each string to the proper note name. So if you're tuning this low E string, you have to get it to an E first. After that, you wanna fine-tune that E note to where it's right spot on. So let's just take this real quick. Our low E string, I threw it out of tune earlier, and it's saying that it's a D sharp, which is not right. It's a little bit low. Now it's up to an E. That's our first step. We've matched the note name, and that's correct. But as you can see, it's a little bit low. So now you have to fine tune it. Up to an E. A little bit too high. There you go. Okay, now I'm gonna throw the rest of this guitar out of tune just randomly, and we can work on our tuning that way. And that's a really good way to practice tuning too, just by the way. So let's try to get the rest of this guitar in tune. So let's go to our A string, and that's telling me that it's a G sharp. Now, once you get in your musical alphabet, once you get all the way to the G, you come back around to the A. So if it's a G sharp, it's telling me that this string's a little bit flat and needs to come up to an actual A note. Okay, now we got it to an actual A. Now we're gonna fine tune it to where it's right on the money. That's good. And one tip I wanted to give you here is always tune up to a note if you can. If you overshoot a note and go too far, a little bit sharp, come back down and try to tune up to that note. That helps your string stay in tune better. All right, next note. This should be a D, and it's telling me it's a D sharp. D sharp is after a D, so it's telling me that it's a little bit too high and we need to come down. Okay, now it's a D, but it's still a little bit sharp because the needle is off to the right. So we'll keep coming down till it's on the money. And remember, always tune up to that note. Okay, what's the name of the next string, the third string? It's a G, right? Should be a G. It's telling me it's a G sharp, and we don't want a G sharp, we want a G, so we need to come down a bit. Okay, it's a G now, the note name matches. And there, it's a G. Make sure to tune up to the note. Now do you see why it was important for you to learn the names of the open strings for the guitar, right? Next string over is the second string. It should be a B. And it's telling me it's an A sharp, which means that it's low and it needs to come up a bit. Okay, it's a B now. It's a little bit low still. And there you go, right on the money. Next string over should be what? An E, right? The first string. And that's an E, but it's telling me it's a little bit sharp. So we need to come down some. So always go under the note and then come up to it, right? And now we're pretty close to being in tune. I always go through and do that again just because since guitars are made of wood, they kind of change when the tension on the strings change. So I go through and tune the whole thing again, and then you should be in tune. So do what I just did. Mess up your guitar, throw it out of tune, get your tuner, and practice tuning your guitar. Match the note names first of the strings, and then fine tune the string to be right on the money. Let's move on to learning how to tune the guitar by ear. This can be pretty intimidating for a lot of players if they don't have a musical background, but I'm gonna give you some tips that are gonna allow you to tune the guitar anywhere, even if you don't have an electronic tuner available. So you're not always gonna have an electronic tuner with you everywhere you go, but if one of your strings on your guitar is close to being in tune, then you can tune the guitar to itself. So let's just say our low E string was close to being in tune, okay? I'm gonna teach you something called the 5th fret method that you can use to tune the rest of the guitar to that low E string. What I'm gonna do is just throw this guitar out of tune just a little bit here and there, kind of randomly, like it would be if it's been sitting in the corner for a long time. And what you're gonna do is go to the 5th fret of the low E string. That note is an A note. And if you remember, the open 5th string should be an A note too. So that note on the 5th fret should sound the exact same as the open 5th string. Not even close, right? The idea is to match this open A string to the sound of the 5th fret of the low E string. And this takes practice. My ear is telling me that it's a little bit low. So I just brought it up and tried to match those two notes as best I could. Okay, next string over. Now we need to tune the D string or the 4th string. What we're gonna do is go to the 5th fret of the A string. And that note is a D note. So this 5th fret of the A string, this D note, should be the same as the open D string. And my ear is telling me that that D string is a little bit sharp and needs to come down some. Let's try it again. There you go. Okay, next step in the 5th fret method is to tune the G string. And what we're gonna do there is play the 5th fret of the D string. That's a G note. So it should be the same as this open G string. That's pretty close. It's a little bit off. And this takes practice, experiment with it. If you can't tell if it's sharp or flat, or if it needs to come up or down, make it go down like a waveform. And then come up, or do the same thing. If you can tell if it's sharp or flat, bring it way up. And if it sounds like it's getting further away, you know it needs to come down. Okay, this is where the 5th fret method kind of falls apart a little bit, or it changes. To tune the B string, we have to go to the 4th fret, not the 5th fret, of the G string, because that note is a B note. So we need to match that note on the 4th fret of the G to the open B string. And my ear is telling me that that open B string needs to come down. It's a bit sharp. And again, this takes practice, but your ear, the more you do it, the better your ear will get at telling if a note needs to come up or down. Now we need to tune the high E string, and to do that, our 5th fret method gets back on track. Go to the 5th fret of the B string, and that note is an E. So those two notes just sound the same. This one's really close. There you go. So once I get the guitar in tune by ear, again, just like when I was using an electronic tuner, I go through and do the whole thing again, just to kind of fine tune and make sure everything's where it should be. Tuning the guitar by ear can be difficult at first, but cut yourself some slack. It takes practice just like anything else on the guitar. Practice it on a regular basis and you'll get better at it. In the next lesson, we're gonna go over strumming hand technique, so get ready for that. If you have any questions on tuning, you can leave them in the comments here below, or just email me, Nate@guitarsystem.com. See you in the next lesson. Welcome to video 7 of the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to use your picking hand to strum properly on the guitar. This is going to make sure that your practice and playing time is efficient, it's going to reduce the risk of injury, and it's going to help your progress be a lot faster in future lessons. Now I'm going to be using a pick for the strumming in this lesson, but you don't have to use one. If you don't have one or if you don't want to, that's totally fine. It's up to you. You can just use your thumb and your index finger to kind of strum the strings. Now I would recommend at least trying to use a pick, and some of the stuff that I'm going to cover in this lesson is a bit subjective as far as how to grip the pick and the angle that you're going to be strumming at. So that's really up to you. So the best way to start trying to hold a pick is to just stick the pick out in front of you like this if you're right-handed, point it that way, put your thumb on it as naturally as you can, and then just come down on that pick with your index finger. Now, as far as the grip on the pick, like I said, try to do what's natural. Your finger may be curved around like that. It may be more parallel to the pick, or maybe even the complete other way. And you may even want to try using two fingers to hold the pick. That gives you some control. Experiment and just see what feels comfortable and natural for you. All right, the second little subjective thing that I want to go over is the angle that you're going to be picking at. Most people have the pick angled downward like this, kind of towards the floor when they strum. Some people have the pick angled more parallel to the strings, and some people, like I said, if you use the two-finger method for holding the pick, the angle is more upward like this. It really doesn't matter. The important thing is that you experiment with the angle that you like best and find out what works for you. The next tip that I want to give you when you're strumming is to relax. If you tense up, you're going to be really inefficient and you're going to open the door for some injury. So if you feel any tension creeping into your strumming at any time, just stop, relax, and then start over again. One thing that I see a lot of newer players do, I see them lock their wrist and just strum from their elbow. And what that does, that can create a lot of tension. That can be a source for a lot of tension, so don't do that. One of the best analogies that I've ever heard for strumming, and I use it all the time, is to pretend like you have some honey on your finger, then your feather is stuck to it, and you're just trying to flick it off. If you look at that, most of the motion is coming from my wrist. My elbow is moving too, but my wrist isn't locked and just using my elbow, right? So keep that in mind, keep that little analogy in mind as we go through this. And we're going to start with just some downstrokes for strumming. And if you don't know any chords yet, that's totally fine. You can just mute the strings, or you can make a chord if you know one. And just take the pick in your hand in your preferred grip that you've been kind of messing with, and then the preferred angle that feels most comfortable for you. And remember that analogy. Don't lock your wrist and just use your elbow. Just go strum through all 6 strings using downstrokes. Keep doing that over and over again until you get comfortable with it. If you need to stop the video, that's totally fine. Once you get comfortable with your downstrokes, you need to get comfortable with some upstrokes too. So do the exact same thing. Make sure you're not locking your wrist and just using your elbow. Just strum through the strings using an upstroke. And a lot of people, a lot of newer guitar players think if they're playing a full chord, like a chord that uses all 6 strings, that they have to upstroke through all 6 strings, and that's not the case. Let me show you this real quick. I'm going to play G chord. It's a 6-string chord. And if I do upstrokes, I generally only hit the top 3 to 5 strings with my upstrokes. With my downstrokes, I generally hit all 6. But with my upstrokes, I'm only hitting about the top 4 strings there. So once you're comfortable with your downstrokes and your upstrokes individually, you're going to want to try to put them together. Just do that over and over again. And like I said, if you don't know a chord yet, that's fine. Just mute the strings. A lot of newer guitar players have trouble holding onto the pick when they strum. It ends up flying out of their hands. You, as a new guitar player, are going to have to experiment with how tightly you hold onto the pick. You want to hold onto it tightly enough to where it doesn't go flying out of your hands, but you don't want to hold onto it so tightly that you tense up. One thing you're going to have to do is kind of develop a technique to where you're kind of constantly adjusting the pick, because if you're strumming a lot, that pick's going to move around a little and you're going to need to adjust your grip. So if I'm strumming a G chord, I'm always making little micro adjustments just to make sure I'm holding onto the pick to where it doesn't fly out of my hands. Keep all the tips that you've learned in this lesson in mind as we move forward in the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. And for right now, just practice your downstroke strumming your upstroke strumming, and putting them together. Don't even worry about your fretting hand right now. Just work on your strumming hand. In the next lesson, we're going to go over your first 2 chords, and I'm also going to give you some tips on how to keep your chords clean and buzz-free. If you have any questions about strumming, you can leave them here in the comments or email me, nate@guitarsystem.com. Later. Hey, welcome to lesson 8 of the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. In this lesson, we're going to learn your first 2 chords. Those 2 chords are A minor 7 and then a C major. These 2 chords are going to be really useful for you. You're going to be using them a lot throughout your guitar career. The A minor 7 is great to start with because it's pretty easy. You're going to have some good success with it initially. And the C major chord is really great for helping you learn the basics of how to make really clean sounding chords. Now, both of these chords and all the other chords we're going to learn in the Beginner Quick Start series are called open chords. And open chords generally have 2 requirements. They usually occur on the first 3 frets of the guitar, and they have at least 1 open string that you're going to play with them. Throughout this lesson, I'm going to be giving you some tips for your fretting hand technique that are going to help keep your chords clean and buzz-free. I'm also going to be giving you some technique tips that are a little bit subjective, but they can pretty much apply to everyone. Before we jump into learning chords, you actually need to know how to read a chord diagram. So let me just go through that with you real quick. If you look at a chord diagram, you're going to see 6 vertical lines. Those vertical lines represent the strings of the guitar. If you're looking at the diagram, the one to the far left represents the low E string, and the one to the far right represents the high E string. The horizontal lines on a chord diagram represent the frets of the guitar. And if you look up at these chord diagrams that we're going to be using in this lesson, you're going to see a rectangle or a block at the top of the chord diagram. That represents the nut of the guitar. That's just for reference to help you kind of keep track of where you are. The dots you're going to see on a chord diagram are there to tell you where to put your fingers. You're going to see 2 types of dots. You're going to see filled in ones or black ones, and then you're going to see hollow ones. The filled in black ones represent the root note of whatever chord you're playing. The numbers in the circles on the chord diagram are telling you which fingers to use when you're playing a particular chord. So, for example, on our A minor 7th chord, if you look at the chord diagram, you're going to see a circle with a 1 in it on the 1st fret of the B string, on the 2nd string. That's telling you to use your 1st finger to play the 1st fret of the B string. Another part of chord diagrams that you're going to want to be aware of are X's that occur above the nut. If you see an X above a string, that's telling you that you shouldn't play that string at all. So in the case of our A minor 7th chord, you're going to leave the low E string out. Before we get started on this A minor 7th chord, I just want to make sure that you realize that you need to stay relaxed as you're making these chords. You shouldn't have any excess tension because that can always kind of open the doorway for injuries. Stay relaxed when you're making these chords, and the only pain that you should feel at all is the pain in your fingertips as your calluses build up. Then, after 3 or 4 weeks, a month or so, that should get better too, though. All right, to get started, just stick your fretting hand out in front of you like this and pretend like you're holding an apple or a baseball. That's a great posture to keep in mind when you're thinking about your fretting hand technique, right? And what you want to do is just bring that hand up and put your thumb on the back of the neck, and that's just the perfect starting position to keep in mind as you learn these chords. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is kinking your wrists. A lot of players tend to kink their wrists really far this way when they're trying to make chords, or they kink their wrists the other way. And this way can really hurt after a while, can really stress out your wrists. And this way it's going to be really hard to make the chords to get your fingers where they need to go. So you want your wrists to be more or less straight. Mine's a little bit curved like that, but that's generally a good posture to have when you're making these chords. Okay, as far as technique goes, I'm going to cover 2 things as we make this A minor 7th chord. 2 more things. The first thing is fret placement, and the second thing is finger posture. So let's get our first note on. Take your first finger down on the 1st fret of the B string. And you're going to want to come down right behind the fret. When I was talking about fret placement, that is what I'm talking about. You want it to be right behind that fret. I'll show you why. The farther back I go, the more buzzy that note gets. So you want to be right behind that fret. The second tip that I want to give you is for finger posture. And by that, I mean you want to come right down on the very tip of your finger. The reason for this is if I don't come right down the very tip of my finger, my index finger is going to brush up against this high E string, and it's going to mute that string. You don't want that. You want to come right down on the very tip of your finger so it doesn't mute any of the surrounding strings. All right, let's get the second note that we need for this A minor 7th chord on here. Take your second finger, put it on the 2nd fret of the D string. Those are the 2 notes that you need to fret in order to play this chord. So make sure you're coming right down the very tip of your finger, and make sure you're coming right behind the fret there. Once you have those 2 notes in place, what you're going to do is strum the top 5 strings of the guitar. Leave this low E string out. Now listen to the chord that you just made. Was it clean and clear like that, or did it sound more like this? Double check yourself. Make sure you're coming right behind the frets. Make sure you're coming right down on the very tips of your fingers. This may take a while for you to build up the coordination and the muscle, but if you follow those 2 rules, your chords will get clean. Okay, when you're learning chords like this, get it on there, play it, leave it there for a while, 30 seconds or so, and then take it off, shake your hand completely out, and then put it back on. It may take you a while to get it on. That's fine. You're working on your muscle memory here. Take it off, leave it on there for longer than I'm doing in this video, right? Leave it on there for a good while. 30 seconds is good. But taking it off and putting it on like that is a real good way to firm up that chord in your memory. The next chord we're going to learn is a C major chord, an open C major chord. And this is a great chord for letting you know if you're coming down on the very tips of your fingers really well or not. Let me show you what the difference is here. Here's the C major chord. And watch what happens when I relax my fingers just a little bit and don't come down on the very tips. Listen to it now. Almost all the notes in that chord just disappeared, right? So just that little motion from there to there is all the difference in the world. So if you had your A minor 7 chord, all you have to do to make a C major 7 is take your 3rd finger right here and stretch it out to grab the 3rd fret of the 5th string, or the A string. And if you'll notice on the chord diagram, that's a black note, so that means that's a root note of the C major chord, which means that this is a C note. So do the same thing you did with your A minor 7 chord. Put that chord on, hold it there, take it off, shake it out. Remember the tips I gave you, come right behind the frets, come right down on the very tips of your fingers. It may take a while. You may have to go 1, 2, 3, but that's natural. You'll get better at it with time, and eventually you'll be able to go right to that chord. So a couple more tips I want to give you when you're learning chords. The more ways you can kind of attack something to memorize it, the better chance you're going to have of remembering it. So when you're making chords, look at the chord and try to visualize or memorize what that chord actually looks like. Another thing you're going to want to do is don't even look at the chord. Just once you have it on there, close your eyes or look away and just try to concentrate on what that chord actually feels like too. Another tip to help you memorize chords faster is to practice these things several times a day. If you can practice these new chords that you're learning 4 or 5 times a day, that'll be awesome. You don't have to do it for very long, 5-10 minutes. But the more times in a day you can practice these chords and memorizing them, the faster you're going to learn them and the faster your hands are going to remember them. Your fingers might be pretty sore for a while, but like I said earlier, that's going to pass in, maybe 4-6 weeks, something like that. And one thing I want to warn you about, a lot of people get frustrated because they can't make clean chords because they start trying to learn chords and then change between chords before they actually have the shapes learned really well. So right now, I don't want you to try to switch between the A minor 7 and the C. Just work on those individual chord shapes, getting them down as good as you can and going right to them. Just work on each one individually for now. In the next lesson, we're going to add 2 more chords to your chord library, and I'm going to give you some tips on actually switching between chords smoothly. I know that's an issue that a lot of beginners have trouble with. So if you have any questions about making chords and making them sound good and buzz-free, you can leave them here on the comments on this page or email me, nate@guitarsystem.com. See you later. Welcome to video 9 of the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. In this lesson, we're going to go over the remaining 2 chords that you need to know to play the song at the end of this series. These 2 chords are G major, open G major, and the open D major chord shapes. You're going to be using these all the time in your guitar career. Now, remember everything we learned in the last lesson about fretting hand technique. Relax, pretend like you're holding an apple, keep your thumb behind the fretboard on the back of the neck, come right down on the very tips of your fingers, relax there, and right behind the frets too. Remember all those things. All right, let's get going with a D major, an open D major. And if you look on the chord diagram, you're gonna see X's above the E and the A strings. So that's telling you to leave those notes out of this chord completely, right? Okay, let's get our first finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. That's a good place to start. You're gonna get it right behind the fret, come right down on the very tip of your finger. 2nd finger is going to grab the 2nd fret of the high E string, and your 3rd finger is going to grab the 3rd fret of the B string. Those are the 3 notes that you want to get. And this chord is a little bit harder just because you have to scrunch your fingers up in such a small area, and you don't want particularly this 3rd finger brushing up against this high E string or the G string right there. So take your pick and strum just through the top 4 strings. If your chord sounds like this, make sure that 3rd finger is coming right down on the tip. So again, go through the whole process of getting this chord committed to memory. Take it off all the way, put it on. If it takes you a while to get it there, that's fine. Take it off, put it on. Remember what it looks like. Remember what it feels like too. So that's your D major chord, your open D major chord. One tip that I want to give you right here, just as a little bonus, is if you haven't had your guitar set up by a professional, I would really recommend doing it. It's only 20 or 30 bucks. And if you're struggling, if your guitar is hard to play, it's totally worth it. It'll make your guitar easier to play, and your practicing and learning a lot more enjoyable. All right, let's move on to the open G major chord. And this is probably the hardest chord of the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. You'll see why. There's going to be 2 ways that I'm going to show you how to play this chord. One way uses the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd fingers. The 2nd way uses the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers. I really recommend this way using the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers. I'll show you why later, but let's learn the actual shape first. Okay, a lot of beginners tend to learn a G using the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd fingers, this shape. So get your 2nd finger on the 3rd fret of the low E string, right behind the fret. 1st finger, 2nd fret of the A string, and your 3rd finger is going to come grab the 3rd fret of the high E string. In this open G chord, you can strum all 6 strings. So that's a way that a lot of beginners learn, but I would really recommend that you use your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers. I'll show you how to do that right now. Put your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the low E string. 2nd finger is going to grab the 2nd fret of the A string, and your pinky, your weak pinky, is going to grab the 3rd fret of the high E string. Same exact shape, different fingers used to make the chord. The reason I recommend using your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers to make this chord is because a G to a C is a really common change for the guitar. And check this out, if I make it with my 1st, 2nd, and 3rd fingers and switch to a C, that's a huge movement that I have to make. If I make that G with my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers, I don't have to, the change isn't that big. It's a lot easier to get to that, and it's a lot faster too. So go through that same process for learning that G chord, put it on, take it off, remember what it looks like, what it feels like, all of that. Many guitar players struggle with changing chords smoothly. That's probably one of the biggest challenges for newer guitar players. And one of the reasons for that is they don't learn their chord shapes they're working on 100% before they start trying to switch between chords. So learn these chords to where you can go right to them on their own before trying to switch between like a G and a C chord, right? When you don't learn a chord really thoroughly, what you're going to do is compound the challenge of switching between chords, and that makes it really frustrating for you. So once you have 2 chord shapes down, for example, a G and a C, What you want to do is try to visualize the chord you're going to switch to before you actually need to go there, so you have a better chance of hitting it. So if I'm playing a G, I want to visualize that C before I actually need to move there. So in preparation for the next lesson, what you should do is just take 2 chords at a time. Don't try to switch between all 4. So if you have just your A minor 7 and your C, just practice switching between those 2. Once you have those 2 down, you may want to practice just switching between your A minor 7 and your D. Remember to try and visualize the chord you're going to move to before you actually need to go there. So try to work on your chord transitions multiple times throughout the day so you can train your muscles and they have a better chance of remembering what's going on and switching between all these chords, right? Get ready for the next lesson because we're going to learn the song that I promised, like I said. If you have any questions on this G or D major chord, leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you, or you can email me, nate@guitarsystem.com. See you. Welcome to lesson 10 of the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. In this lesson, we're going to put everything you've learned so far about your strumming and your fretting hands together to play through a classic song. This is going to be really fun for you because you're going to get to apply everything you've learned so far to some actual real music. If you're a newer guitar player, putting all these things together can be pretty challenging. So now is a great time to go back and review some of the lessons on either, the open chords we're using, fretting hand technique, or strumming too. So all of the chords we've learned so far in the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series are in the key of G major. That's not really important for you to know where that comes from. I just want to kind of expose you to the fact that all 4 of these chords are in the key of G major. What we're going to do is put these chords together in a progression to play through this song. That progression is G, D, A minor 7, and then C. And you're probably going to have a little bit of trouble changing through these chords smoothly, but that's fine. That's normal at first. Practice. Remember all the tips I've given you about changing chords smoothly and making your chord sound clean and buzz-free. Okay, what we're going to do is keep the strumming really, really simple for now, just so you can concentrate on making your chord changes smooth and clear. So what we're going to do is just strum each chord twice. So start with your G, get it on there, and just strum it twice. You can use downstrokes, that's fine. From there, switch to a D. Use downstrokes again. Make sure not to play the E or the A strings here. Move to an A minor 7 and leave the low E string out, remember, for your strumming. Strum that twice, then move to a C major and strum that twice. So try to visualize the next chord before you need to go to it, remember. So if you're on your G, by the time you're hitting the next strum, the second strum, you need to be thinking about that D chord so you can move right to it. Same thing, start thinking about that A minor 7 early. Start thinking about that C now. And if your chords are sounding not clear, not great, or just a little buzzy sounding, make sure that you're coming down right on your fingertips and that your fingers are right behind the frets. Once you start learning how to switch between chords like this, when you learn new chords, switching between those chords and the chords that you already know will be easier. So be encouraged, it does get easier after a while. In the next lesson, we're going to dress up your strumming and make it a little bit more musical, so get ready for that. If you have any questions, ask them in the comment section below. You can also email me, nate@guitarsystem.com. See ya. Welcome to video 11 of the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. In this lesson, we're going to make your strumming a little bit more musical and dress it up. If you remember in the last lesson, we went through the G, D, A minor 7, C progression, and we kept the strumming really simple. I did that so you could concentrate on your chord changes and making them smooth. In this lesson, we're going to learn a little bit more musical and realistic strumming pattern. This is going to be great for you because you're going to be able to dig deeper into actually expressing yourself more musically on the guitar. Now, if you don't have your chord transitions down perfectly, don't feel like you have to have them down just dead on before you continue with the strumming pattern in this lesson. To learn the strumming pattern that we're going to use in this lesson, you're going to have to learn how to count 16th notes. So basically, to this point, we've been counting just 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. In order to count 16th notes, we need to give each beat or each number in the 1, 2, 3, 4 syllables as kind of placeholders. So what we're going to do is count 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. And you may feel a little bit silly doing this, but what I want you to do is just count out loud with me using that counting system. So 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. And just do that over and over again until you get used to it. So now that you know how to count 16th notes, I'm just going to show you this new strumming pattern, and then we're going to kind of break it apart and dissect it. So I'm just going to put a G chord on and play the strumming pattern over and over again for you. So this new strumming pattern incorporates an upstroke, and one thing I want to remind you of is don't feel like you have to strum through all 6 strings when you're using your upstrokes. If you pay attention, I'm only hitting about the top 4 strings when I use my upstrokes. Another tip I want to give you for your upstrokes and your downstrokes for that matter is you don't have to dig in with a ton of your pick. All you have to use is the very tip. Otherwise, if you dig in with too much of the pick, that can make it really hard to get that upstroke through the strings. So just experiment with that. Don't dig in too much. And don't feel like you have to hit all 6 strings coming up. So let's talk about this new strumming pattern a little bit. I'm going to tell you the counting for it. It's 1, 2, and a. So if you have 1 E and a, you can have a downstroke on 1 E and a. And then you're going to have a downstroke on 2, and that's going to ring out through 2E, and then you're going to have a downstroke on and then an upstroke on a. So 1 E and a, 2 E and a. Let me do that again for you. 1 E and a, 2 E and a. So that's the basic counting for this song. When you get to 3 E and a, 4 E and a, it's the same exact thing. You're going to have 3 E and a, just like you had on 1, and then 4 E and a. And basically what we're going to be doing is playing that strumming pattern once for each chord in this progression. To fully understand how the strumming pattern works, we need to talk about something called the constant strumming technique. And basically all that is keeping your arm going for every count when you're counting 16th notes. So if you have 1 E and a, 2 E and a, you're going to keep your arm going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up the entire time. So 1 E and a, 2 E and a. Constant strumming, right? Now, when we keep our arm going like that constantly, all we have to do is dig into the strings on the strumming that we talked about. So if we keep this going steady, we have 1 E and a, 2 E. Same exact strumming pattern that we talked about earlier. Our arm just keeps going the entire time. So check that out. I'm going to count and show you how the constant strumming technique works. Watch my arm, it just keeps going even though I'm only digging into the strings on the 1, 2, and a. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E. You see how my arm kept going with the time, just keeping time. and it was only digging into the strings for those specific strokes on the strumming pattern that we talked about earlier. Now, when you're learning this strumming pattern, don't even worry about the chords at first if you don't want to. If you're having trouble with it, just mute the strings or just stay on one chord. Just get that down. One E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and don't forget, don't just lock your wrist and strum from your elbow. That can create some tension. Make sure the feather and the honey analogy, make sure to keep that in mind when you're doing the strumming pattern too. So once you get this down, you can apply it to every chord in the chord progression that we learned earlier. So if you did that, it would sound like this. And one trick I want to show you, watch this. If I make that first G major chord and do the strumming pattern, if on the upstroke, I hit all the strings open, it's going to give me time to get to that next D chord. Same thing, if I do that same strumming pattern on my D and on the upstroke, hit all open strings, it'll give me some time to get to that A minor 7. And same thing when I work from my A minor 7 to my C. Not as big of an issue there because all you have to do is come down with your third finger to make that C. But that's one way, a good kind of stepping stone to work on your chord transitions. Don't be afraid to hit those open strings in between those chords. So that's a good stepping stone, like I said, but eventually you want to get to where you can go right to the chords. So that's a bit more of a musical strumming pattern you can use for this song. Now I'm going to play the whole thing again, and then I'm going to embellish it a little more to give you an idea of what you can shoot for. So slow this way down if you have to. It doesn't have to be perfect right away. Remember, if you're having trouble with one particular chord transition, maybe this G to the D, just isolate that. Just work on the G to the D. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about where you need to go from here in your guitar journey. If you have any questions, just leave them below or email me, Nate@guitarsystem.com. See ya. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series. So, what do you do next? I think for someone in your position, a newer guitar player, the most important thing for you to do is set some real attainable goals for yourself. A lot of guitar players lack direction and they don't know what to practice simply because they haven't defined what it is that they want to learn. So set some goals. These goals can be as simple as learning the rest of your open chords, learning a particular song, or learning the blues skill. The important thing is that you have a goal that's going to give your practice time purpose and direction. There are lots of other free guitar lessons here on guitarlessons.com that you can use to fill up your practice time and give you some goals in your playing. If you want to fast track your guitar progress, you should check out the Guitar System. It's my comprehensive step-by-step video training course that goes from beginner to advanced with all the styles in between. It's not going to skip any steps. It's going to help you realize your full potential on the guitar. To find out more about it, you can go to www.guitarsystem.com. Thanks so much for completing the Beginner Guitar Quick Start series with me. I hope it's inspired you to move forward with your dreams and goals of playing the guitar. See you around.